GMA, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, evening. My name is John Willett. Welcome to episode number 12 of Potholes and Cadillac Dreams. And I'm going to state right up front, this is going to be an entirely different episode than what we've done previously. I know we've kind of covered the gamut. We've covered lots of potholes. We've covered Cadillac Dreams. We've covered this. We've covered that. We've covered business. We've covered pleasure. But we have not covered what has been I would say an obsession of mine for many years, ever since I was a child and went to my first football game. I think it was the age of 5 or 6. Went to what was then the brand new DC Stadium in Washington, D.C., and saw a team by the name of the Washington Redskins play the accursed, foul, awful Philadelphia Eagles. That was the first game I ever saw, and I've seen many since then. As you all may well know, the Washington Commanders, which is a hideous name, by the way, a terrible name, and they should change the name because it's just awful, as was the past owner of the Washington Commanders / Redskins, a gentleman by the name of Daniel Snyder. More on him later. The Commanders were sold yesterday to a group headed by a gentleman by the name of Josh Harris. Mr. Harris also owns the Philadelphia 76ers and the New Jersey Devils. The 76ers are in the NBA. The New Jersey Devils are in the NHL. And he had a whole group of folks with him, including a gentleman by the name of Mitchell Rales, who's a billionaire in Washington, D.C., as well as a guy that you may have heard by the name of Irvin Magic Johnson. He was also in that ownership group that was approved yesterday by the NFL owners. If you are in Washington, D.C. or thereabouts, or if you are a Redskins fan / Commanders fan, you are giddy with glee today because the witch is dead. Ding dong. I want to say other bad words, but I'm not going to say them. Daniel Snyder is no longer the owner of our team. Daniel Snyder is gone. Daniel Snyder right now is, from what I understand, living in London, England, and good riddance to the man. Maybe he never come back to the United States of America again because he's a jerk. I could tell lots of stories, but I would suggest for anybody living in the Washington, D.C. area, going to any, I would say, medium to high-end restaurant, do me a favor and find a captain or a waiter and ask them what they think of Daniel Snyder. I'm going to say a bad word now, so please cover the children's ears. Usually what they will say is something along the lines of asshole. And that is a pretty accurate statement of how Mr. Snyder treated everybody not only in his employ, but everybody around him. He was a nasty man, a bad man, a nasty, vicious little man. He was about, 4'2", 4'3", short little guy. Anyway, a quick story. I went to Carlisle, Pennsylvania with my friend Jeff. We were, if you know, maybe you don't, the Washington Redskins used to train up in Carlisle, Pennsylvania every year for years and years. And finally, they went back to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And I had heard that there was this great cigar store there. So we looked it up, went in, started chatting with the owner, and said something to the effect of, has Daniel Snyder come in here? I will not repeat for you what this gentleman said to me, other than the fact that it was a string of bad words. He did not know us but about 30 or 40 seconds. String of bad words, saying various things about Mr. Snyder's heritage and about his parenthood and about things that he could do to himself that are basically anatomically impossible. He said bad things about Mr. Snyder's father, Mr. Snyder's friends, Mr. Snyder's whoever the hell was with Mr. Snyder. This guy went off and in no uncertain terms told me exactly what he thought of the man and that he was hoping for the day that Mr. Snyder would come back in, because then he would call the police and have Mr. Snyder removed. That's the type of effect Daniel Snyder had on just about everybody. A good thing to remember at this point is could be just spouting off and just upset because my team was if you looked up mediocre or terrible in the dictionary, you would see a picture of my team. But I will tell you that in the last few years, the Washington Redskins / Commanders were the team with the lowest average attendance in the National Football League. They had the lowest fan base in the National Football League. It used to be, before Mr. Snyder took over the team, that the Washington Redskins had a supposed 20-year waiting list for season tickets. That is not true anymore, boys and girls. Oh, no, 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 no. You can walk right up and get yourself a ticket right now. Now. I'll bet, though, right now, hopefully, there's some season tickets being sold because they've got new ownership. And we're very, very happy about that. And the reason I'm in my Washington Redskins cap, and I don't know whether you can see, but this is a Joe Gibbs. Let me just, for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm standing out of my chair so that folks can see not only my Redskins cap, which I have on, it's a very lovely burgundy and gold cap, but also my Joe Gibbs Hall of Fame induction t-shirt, which I purchased back in 1996 when Coach Gibbs was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it still fits me because, well, I'm just manly and I haven't gained any weight and life is good. So anyway, I'm in my Joe Gibbs t-shirt and I'm in my Washington Redskins cap, one of about 50 that I own, honestly. And I'm going to cover with you all today my top 10 Redskins memories. I'm doing this, if you want to say that the Redskins have been a giant pothole for me and I've wasted thousands of dollars from the years 2000 to 2007, that's fine. You can say that. They were awful. There were many, many, many times when we had our tailgate, and we had great tailgates, by the way. If you all are familiar with tailgates, we used to get there right when the gates open. We would set up 2 big tents. We'd set up 3 grills. We would set up tables, chairs, all kinds of stuff. We had terrific tailgates. But basically, between the years 2000 and 2007, it was just abysmal. Just abysmal because we were terrible. Just awful. Anyway, so we can call it a pothole if you want. I mean, I stepped in it when I was 5 or 6 years old and just wallowed in this pothole. However, amidst all this potholishness, there was times to leap out of the pothole and climb into that burgundy and gold Cadillac and scoot on down the road. And I'm going to tell you about a few of those. Let me pull my notes close to me so that I can tell you. First of all, I was fortunate enough to go to the first 3 Super Bowls that the Redskins were ever in. The first one was Super Bowl XVII. So that would be one of the top 10 because it was the very first Super Bowl that the Redskins were in. They were favored in that Super Bowl, by the way. It was Coach George Allen. Billy Kilmer was the quarterback. Larry Brown was the National Football League Most Valuable Player. Charlie Taylor was still on that team. Chris Hamburger, who was recently inducted into the Hall of Fame, was on that team. We were actually favored. This was the team that you've probably seen a million times. You hear about it almost every year. The 1972 Miami Dolphins. They went 17-0. Their 17th victory was against, that's right, the Washington Redskins in Super Bowl XVII. So I got to see that game. I got to see the Miami Dolphins finish off their perfect season. I was not happy about it. I still am not happy about it because every flipping year, somebody will not go undefeated and wipe these guys off the face of the earth. It just doesn't happen. Every year I get to see Don Shula being lifted on the shoulders of his players in glee after going 17-0 after beating us 14-7. That was also, by the way, if you're keeping track at home, that was the year that Gary Yepremian of the Dolphins tried to kick a field goal. It was blocked. He tried to throw a pass, and then Mike Bass of the Redskins returned it for a touchdown. You see that clip normally along with the Don Shula being hoisted on his players' shoulders, which is bad. So anyway, Super Bowl XVII is a top 10 memory because I got to go to California, got to go to the Rose Bowl, got to see a Super Bowl. So that was kind of cool. The last game at RFK Stadium was very, very cool. Again, for those of you on podcast, I apologize. I'm now holding up, and I'll get it close there so everybody can see it. This was actually a postcard of the, let's see, there we go, a postcard of the cover of the program that was given out that day at RFK Stadium. It says, "Hail to RFK, farewell to RFK," and it's got pictures of covers from 1961 all the way to 1996 when they played their last game against the Dallas Cowboys, and they won, which was very, very cool. So that is a memory because basically at the end of the game, everybody ran on the field, including myself, and it has just been recently that I had to get rid of a piece of turf that I had grabbed out of the out of the field and put in a Ziploc bag and kept it for years and years and years until it just wasn't even recognizable anymore. So I kept that, and that was cool. And last game at RFK, we beat the cursed Cowboys. I think it was 35-13, something like that. It was some big number. And it was nice. It was a nice way to go out, even though our team, was terrible that year. Now, the next one would be the 1991 NFC title game, which was held in Washington, D.C. And that is significant to me for a few reasons. First of all, I was living in Arizona at the time. But I was doing some outside work for the Arizona News Radio Network, which I've mentioned on previous podcasts, and my buddy George Tanner. George thought it would be a great idea if I, being a Washingtonian, went and covered the 1991 NFC title game for Arizona News Radio Network and suggested that I get a press pass for it. And I thought, well, sure, they're going to bring in an Arizona radio guy, and they're going to give him a press pass for the biggest game of that year before, obviously, the Super Bowl. Yeah, I'm going to get that pass. Sure I am. And I did. I got a press pass. Unfortunately, I was trying to find it for you all so that I could show it to you. Actually, I didn't really get a press seat. I got a press stool. I was on a stool in kind of an outer wing of the press box. And the stool actually said Arizona News Radio Network. I have it somewhere, and at some point I will bring it up and show it to you. But I did have a press pass. I got to see all the press stuff. I went to all the press events that they had that week in Washington, D.C. Among them, and this is one of the reasons it was so cool, was a press scrum that they had at a hotel in Washington, D.C. on a Thursday. I actually was able to take my best friend, Jeff Hedrick, with me. And the first thing was that we were able to meet John Madden. If you are a football fan, you know who John Madden is. And we got to meet John Madden. And what was really amazing is this big guy comes lumbering up. Jeff and I are talking, just comes lumbering up to us and goes, "Hi, I'm John Madden." Like, yeah, we know. We've only been watching you for years and whatever. The nicest man, we'll just say the nicest man, because he really was. He was just amazing. For 15 minutes, he just talked with Jeff and I about football. And luckily, we didn't kind of go, "Oh my God, Mr. Madden, you're just so, I don't know." We talked football with him. And we talked Redskins and Lions, and he correctly predicted that the Redskins were just going to kill him, which they did. But he was such a nice guy, and you didn't run into many folks, particularly TV folks, that were that way. I met Dick Stockton, and there's a segue here. He was also with CBS for years and years and years. And I met him in Arizona when I was doing work for George at Redskins Cardinal games. And he was a very nice man. So shout out to the Stockton family, because Dick Stockton was amazing and a very nice man. But John Madden was sensational. But that wasn't the thing that my buddy and I remembered. Right after that, and this is how you have to be a Washingtonian to appreciate this. On WMAL AM 630, there was a guy by the name of Ken Beatrice, and he was on for years and years and years. He had his own sports talk show at night, and he had a very, very distinctive voice, very, very distinctive way of talking. And if you were a sports fan in D.C., you listened to him religiously because he just was, he was the guy. He was the man. And so we were talking to John Madden, and all of a sudden, here comes this guy. And you recognize the voice instantly. It's like, oh my God, that's Ken Beatrice. I've really got to watch myself here. The only thing that my buddy and I talked about, we just talked yesterday, actually, before I did this podcast, about memories and what have you, and he laughed and said, do you remember that we actually met John Madden that day? And I'm like, oh my God, that's right, we met John Madden that day. Because Ken Beatrice came up and every other word was an F-bomb. Now, the only way to describe this is, how about meeting somebody that maybe you admire, maybe you like, maybe you've admired from afar, maybe you've heard or listened to or seen for years and years and years, and you have this kind of vision in your head as to what this person is going to be like, and then it just gets turned on its ear. And that's the way it was with Ken Beatrice. He just blasted us with F-bombs. I mean, every other word was F this, F that, this effing team, that, blah. And we're like, I'm sure we're like, this is like, what the hell's going on here? Our Ken Beatrice is blasting us with F-bombs. So that's something that we remember. And if you are a Washingtonian, you understand this, that it was incomprehensible to us that this guy would be doing this. But he did. And that's what we remembered. And it was like, oh yeah, that's right. We also met the legendary Hall of Famer, great coach, great commentator, great broadcaster, John Madden. Oh yeah, with the Madden mobile and the Madden bus and all the crazy things that John Madden did. Yeah, we met him. Oh yeah, because Ken Beatrice was effing this and effing that and just lots of effings. So anyway, and then we won. We won 41-7. We just killed them. And we went to Super Bowl XXVI. And I actually was able to get a press pass for Super Bowl XXVI. And I couldn't go because I didn't have the money. So that's one of those, those bad life choices early on that come to affect you later on. Yeah. So that's a mini pothole amidst all this Redskinalia. Was that I didn't get a chance to go to Super Bowl XXVI. And I regretted that very, very much. And because, first of all, it was in Minnesota. It was in a dome stadium. I've actually been to that stadium, which is not a bad stadium. And we beat the Bills 34-27, and it was a very cool memory. But anyway, we got to meet John Madden and Ken Beatrice threw F-bombs at us. So that was really, really cool. That's that one. I'm trying to decide what would be the next one. And I think this one would be. In, I would say, the early 2000s, our tailgates, as I said, were just fabulous. Just fabulous tailgates. And there came a time, and this was during my second marriage to my second wife. She had a best friend who was getting married to a gentleman. I'm not going to give you the names because everybody that knows me knows them and knows the situation, so I don't want to embarrass them. But anyway, it was really cool what we did. So we decided to invite them to the game, and we decided that we were going to surprise them. I don't know how we pulled this off, but we did. As I said, we had tents that we set up. We put her in one tent and him in another. We had a few people kind of blocking the entrance. And then we got a male stripper for her and a female stripper for him. So we had this tailgate. Everybody got lubricated. And here comes this, these cops. It's always the cops. And one's a female and one's a male. And they said, oh, this is too much. You've got to shut this down. And one went one way, one went the other. And all of a sudden there was music playing and things happening. And it was pretty remarkable. It was pretty remarkable. Imagine now, because our setup was, you're facing out into the rest of the parking lot is where so I'm trying to use my hands here. If you imagine in podcast land, I'm pushing my hands out because you're looking out into a parking lot and people can basically see in. We had people kind of trying to block the situation, but you kind of knew what was going on. Kind of knew. Anyway, we got away with it. And they went about 15, 20 minutes, and they were terrific, and it was a great surprise, and it was a lot of fun, and that's a memory that I carry with me, because I can't believe we pulled it off. It was pretty cool. So we marked that off. Stripper tailgate is marked off. As you saw early on, I have my Joe Gibbs Hall of Fame t-shirt on. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame in 1996. My buddy Jeff and I decided we were going to go up to Canton, Ohio in 1996 for the Hall of Fame induction, which we did. We saw the Hall of Fame. It was terrific. There is something that we are very, very proud of that I don't think I will ever forget. We got there very early. We got there it must have been 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. And for some strange reason, we've always been on the same page, my buddy Jeff and I. We thought, wouldn't it be a really cool thing? Because we got this section, and we were decked head to toe in Redskin stuff. Wouldn't it be great if we just filled this one section full of Redskin fans? And so, as people started to arrive, if they had Redskin stuff on, we invited them to this section. And we literally filled this huge section up with hundreds of Redskins fans. Just hundreds. Including, there were, I think, 5 members of the Washington Redskins marching band that were there. They were in our section too. We almost got, and again, for you Washingtonians, you'll know who this is. For you others, I apologize. But Wayne Sevier was a special teams coach for the Skins. And he came up to Canton for the induction. His wife had to talk him out of it, but he almost sat in our section rather than his assigned seat in at the front of the podium for Joe Gibbs. He almost sat in our section. It was really close. Anyway, the coolest part about the whole thing was obviously it was on ESPN, and if you go back to the Gibbs induction, you can actually see our section gets shown several times during Gibbs's induction, but it also gets shown during, I think it was Mel Renfro. There was a cowboy that came on before Joe Gibbs did, and I think it was Mel Renfro. Anyway, Tom Landry was the person who was inducting him into the Hall of Fame. And one of the first things Mr. Landry said, Coach Landry said, was if I had known I was coming to a Washington Redskins event, I would have either not come or worn something more appropriate. A rally. That's what he said. If I knew I was coming to a Washington Redskins rally, I would have done something different. Anyway, we lose our minds. We're on ESPN. Place is going crazy. The band plays. And of course, when Joe Gibbs goes, the whole section stands up and we're on TV there. So if you get a chance, it's the 1996 induction for Joe Gibbs, and you will see our section prominently displayed. But that was Jeff and me and nobody else. We put that section together. It was fun. It was so much fun. And it was a great day. It was just a great, great, great day. And that's a lasting Redskin memory I have. The next one is really interesting. A lot of people know that I'm crossing off my Joe Gibbs. For those of you in podcast land, the scratching you hear is me scratching off Joe Gibbs so that I don't cover Joe Gibbs again, because that would be bad. Anyway, wouldn't be bad. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, Joe Gibbs, Hall of Fame coach. Plus, if you're a NASCAR fan, you've probably been following Joe Gibbs racing for years and years. And he's won a few Daytona 500s and NASCAR championships and what have you. So the guy can coach, no matter what genre you're talking about. Anyway, in the year 2000, my second wife, Sharon, and I decided we were going to renew our vows. And she came up with an adaptation of her wedding dress, cut off at the knees with some feathers around it and a boa and whatever. And for some strange reason, we decided that we were going to get made for me a one-piece Washington Redskins Elvis jumpsuit. And that we did. And a guy by the name of Ptolemy, that's what he called himself. I think I can say this. It was Ptolemy the Gay Tailor is what I used to call him, and he used to laugh like hell. He was a short little guy, funny little voice, but man was he talented. Holy mackerel. He was just so much fun to work with. Anyway, he designed for me, made for me a one-piece Elvis Presley Washington Redskin jumpsuit. From the years of 2000 to 2007, I'd say about 4 or 5 games a year, I'd dress up in this thing and I'd walk around the parking lot and get lots of free stuff, food and liquor and beer and whatever. And I'd have scarves with me, so I'd give scarves to girls and give them kisses, and it was just a hoot. It was a lot of fun, and I got to meet, all the other mascots that were in that time, including the Chief, who's actually in the Hall of Fame, a guy by the name of Z. Williams. He's no longer with us, but he used to walk with me. And at one point I said to him, Chief, whoa, you're in the Hall of Fame. What are you doing walking with me? He said, because when I'm with Relvis, I get sugar. I don't get no sugar when I'm walking by myself. But when I'm with Relvis, the girls hug me and the girls kiss me because they're kissing and hugging on Relvis. So that was kind of a cool thing. Anyway, Hall of Fame guy walking with me. That's really neat. So we renew our vows, and then because this thing cost like $1,200, and Sharon said to me, she said, for $1,200, you're going to wear that damn thing to the game. And I thought, wear it to the game? Holy cow. So I started wearing it to the game, and sure enough, we had all kinds of fun, and it was a really cool thing. Well, in 2001, the Redskins decided that they were going to go back to Carlisle, Pennsylvania. They had been training in Maryland. They'd been training everywhere. But they decided that year to go back to Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which is where I got my story about the nice cigar store owner and his thoughts on Mr. Snyder. Well, that morning I didn't dress up in my ensemble, but in the afternoon for the afternoon practice, I certainly did. And created quite the stir. So much, in fact, that the Cumberland County's daily newspaper, the Sentinel, and this is another one where it's a visual, so I apologize to you podcast folks, but I would really suggest you get on the YouTube and just go under Potholes and Cadillac Dreams just to check this out. This is page one, mind you, above the fold. Page one above the fold, which is just crazy. As you can see, say hi to Relvis. Say hi to Relvis. There it is. Trying to talk to you while I'm... There we go. This is a little better. And there you go. And now you can see that, yep, that's me right there in the corner, dressed up in my suit. And the Sentinel thought it was such a big deal that they actually put it on the front page above the fold. Above the fold, kids. Above the fold. Relvis goes above the fold. So, that was really neat. They called me the next day. The Sentinel did. I guess someone had told them who I was and whatever, and they decided that they were going to put me on there. And they asked me a couple things, and I said sure, blah 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 blah. And then I get this package in the mail a few days later, and I was just looking at myself because I'm so cute today. Sorry, podcasters. I was looking at myself in my screen here while I'm doing the YouTube, and I thought to myself, I'm looking at the screen. Why am I looking at the screen? Why am I not looking? So, again, you poor podcasters today, this is just, you've got to go to YouTube. Just go to YouTube and just kind of watch this one, because it's a very visual. It's a very visual type of setup and a very visual episode, and I want to make sure that you see all of it and understand where my craziness comes from. So anyway, that was an amazing thing, because I was not only on the paper, but there were several radio stations, local radio stations that interviewed me. There were a couple local TV stations that interviewed me. So it was cool. It was really nice, and that was a really cool day. That's a great memory. We can talk about let's see, there we go. We're going to mark down a row of us. So we've gotten through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've gotten through 6, and now we're going to do the top 4. And the top 4 are all games, because they're all special to me. The NFC title game in 1972, I was only 16 years old. I just turned 16. And it was in DC Stadium. RFK Stadium at the time. It turned to RFK Stadium in 1968 when Robert Kennedy was assassinated. They changed the name to Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Stadium. And it was the Redskins versus the Cowboys. And the Redskins had been terrible for many years, and then hired George Allen in 1971 and made the playoffs in 71, and then made the title game in 72. And it was the first time that the stadium ever rocked and shook. There would be another time as well. What you heard when you came into the stadium is this chant. And the chant was, "We want Dallas. We want Dallas." And then we were up in the upper deck. So when we got into the upper deck, you actually saw the lower stands shake, because they're basically portable. Basically, I'm going like this. Portable stands, and literally people were jumping up and down on them to make them shake. And so the Cowboys come out and boo, and then we come out and it's cheers and whatever. We win the game 26-3. The clip that you normally see is Billy Kilmer throwing a touchdown pass to Charlie Taylor. It's about a 60-yard touchdown pass. We could not see the end of that pass, because where we were in the upper deck, we were actually above that area of the end zone, so we could not actually see him catch the ball. The only reason we knew that he caught it was that the place lost their collective minds, because that was basically the signal that we actually were going to go to the Super Bowl for the first time, or the second time. And so it was amazing. It was amazing. That was a great team. Like, as I said before, Larry Brown was actually on the cover of, I think, Time magazine, as well as Sports Illustrated. Was the most valuable player in the National Football League. This was the Redskins that were called the Over the Hill Gang, because George Allen in 1971 had traded for a bunch of his old Los Angeles Rams. He was the former coach of the LA Rams before moving to Washington. And they were called the Over the Hill Gang. You had Jack Pardee, who became the coach of the Redskins later on. Myron Patios, Richie Pettibone, who became the defensive coordinator. Ron McDowell from the Buffalo Bills. Dyron Talbert. There were lots of them, including Billy Kilmer, who actually was the quarterback. And, of course, Sonny Jurgensen was still there. Charlie Taylor was still there, and he was still playing at the top of his game. It was a really good team. And unfortunately, as I said before, we lost in Super Bowl XVII to the accursed Miami Dolphins, and I get to see that clip every year. So But that was the 1972 title game. For some reason, 1983 stands out even more. Same type of scenario. It was us against the Cowboys for the NFC title, but we for some reason it just meant more, because once George Allen had left in 1976, we were off and on. We were kind of good, kind of not. We would come close to making the playoffs, and then we wouldn't. But Joe Gibbs came on board in 1981. He actually started 0-5. A lot of people don't remember that, but Joe Gibbs started 0-5 and then proceeded to turn the 1981 season into an 8-8 season. And then from that day forward, it was Katie bar the door. I believe we lost one game. I think it was to the Cowboys in 1982. Beat the Lions. In the first playoff game, there was a playoff system because there was a strike. I think it was for 9 weeks there was a strike. And so they had a modified playoff system. We beat the Lions in the first game, and then Minnesota in the second game. This is when John Riggins ran for 154 yards. You sometimes see this clip, and this was really cool because we were there. He was being taken out, and basically to get the type of applause he wanted, he stood away from the line and then bowed to all the corners of the stadium. So you see him actually bow, and the place just went berserk. And then it was the Cowboys. And I remember it being louder. And I remember it being more strident. And I remember it being electric. And I remember it being the type of place where you just are so happy that you're in that spot at that moment in your life. I know that sounds like an over-exaggeration, but it was an amazing, amazing moment. We walked into that place. We want Dallas. We want Dallas. I mean, it's loud. I mean, it's much louder than, I remember it being much louder than 72. I remember the stand shaking more. I remember it is just, if I am correct, and I think I am correct, it was this title game where John Madden said, he and Pat Summerall were doing the game. John Madden said that RFK Stadium was the best place in the whole country to watch a football game. I believe it was during that broadcast that he said that. He has said that a couple times. He even said that to me in 1991. He said, Washington's just the best place to watch a football game. I'm sure he would say right now, thinking about it, that maybe Kansas City is. I would say the Kansas City fans are amazing. And certainly we have a long way to go in terms of catching them from the highs we were. But RFK Stadium was just this great little bandbox, 55,000 seat place that and the sound just stayed there because there was just a kind of a small overhang, and oh my word. I think that's when he said it. Anyway, we won the game 31-17. The big play, and this is when the roof came off the place, was when, and I can't remember isn't that terrible? I can't remember the Dallas quarterback. Gary Hogaboom. Gary Hogaboom came in because Danny White was knocked down. Dexter Manley had knocked Danny White senseless. And Hogaboom came in, actually tossed a touchdown pass, got them close, and then went back for a screen pass. Dexter Manley tipped it, and then Darryl Grant, the defensive tackle, caught the ball in midair and ran it in for a touchdown. And the place lost their collective minds. I mean to tell you, it was amazing. If you've ever been to a sporting event where the crowd just has lost this, it beats everything you'd ever imagine. It was just sensational. Another little story, and we were kind of noticing this, in our joy, because we were basically, with 5 minutes, 43 seconds left, we got the ball back, and it's 31-17, so there's still a chance. And basically, Joe Theismann tells a story. If you ever see the story of the '83 Redskins Super Bowl team. Joe Theismann tells his story. He says Joe Gibbs sent in a play, and it was blah, 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 blah. And Russ Grimm looks at him and says, no. And Joe says, what? He says, no, we're running 50 gut, which is handoff to Riggins straight up the middle at Randy White. And Joe says, okay, we're going to run 50 gut. And they run 50 gut, and Russ Grimm lays a hurting on Randy White, and Riggins moves forward. They get back in the huddle again. Joe Theismann gives another, and Russ Grimm says, no, we're running 50 gut. Okay, we're running 50 gut. And they just kept, and at some point, Russ Grimm is saying to Randy White, we're coming at you. We're coming right at you. Every single play, we're coming right at you. And I mean, they just kept the ball for the last 5 minutes, 43 seconds. They ran 50 gut, I think 8 or 9 straight times. And and Randy White's a Hall of Famer, don't get me wrong. Randy White deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But on that particular day, in that particular series, Russ Grimm owned him. I mean, owned him. Because we were like, they keep running the same play. They keep running the same play. And he just kept gaining yards, 5, 6 yards, 5, 7 yards. Just kept moving the chain. And the place is just going crazy. Anyway, that's your basic 1983 championship game and your basic 1972 championship game, both which victories over the Cowboys, which was cool. The last two memories that I have are, first of all, Super Bowl XXII. I was there in San Diego, which was amazing. We were very, very concerned. If you're a Redskins fan, you remember we were behind 10-0 after the end of the first quarter. And we were very, very concerned, and we shouldn't have been, because then the Redskins erupted for 35 points in the second quarter, which I think is still a record. Doug Williams was the most valuable player. We won 42-10. It was an amazing game, and it was an amazing. The only reason I think it's so high is because of that 35-point out. I've never seen anything like it. It's like we kept saying to each other, maybe we can just get one more. Maybe just one more. Maybe just one more. And it turned into five touchdowns in the second quarter. And game, set, match. Game, set, match. Or is that 6 touchdowns? 5 touchdowns. 6 touchdowns. 6 times 5, 35. Yeah, there you go. 5 touchdowns. Sorry. Doing my math incorrectly. I apologize. So anyway, that was really something. And Doug Williams deserved to be most valuable player, because he had actually wrenched his knee a few plays before in the first quarter, and then came back and on one leg basically tore the Denver defense apart. That was sensational. The best memory I have is Super Bowl XVII, because first of all, the Redskins won. Second of all, they beat the Miami Dolphins, which was really cool, because I had a pretty long memory and I remember what happened the first time we played them. Third thing is that I had gone there with my father and some friends of ours. And it was, as many of you know, it was a seesaw game, back and forth. And then it came to 4th and 1 at the Dolphin 42 with 10 minutes left in the game. And everybody knew we were going for it. Everybody knew who was going to get the ball, which was John Riggins. Everybody thought, okay, this is basically going to decide the game. I mean, everybody knew it. Dolphins fans, Redskins fans, this was going to be the play that decided the football game. And so Riggins takes the handoff, 70 chip, famous 70 chip, sheds the tackle. I think it was Don McNeil. I want to remember Don McNeil being the cornerback that tried to tackle him. You see that iconic picture of the jersey being almost torn, and then him lumbering for a touchdown. And all I remember is my father and I standing there just hugging each other, jumping up and down, just screaming, jumping up and down, because we knew that the Redskins, who he had followed since he moved to D.C., and who I had followed since 1961, the Redskins were going to be world champions. And as you can hear from my voice, that was an amazing moment. That was like the number one moment in my Redskins life, was my father and I hugging. And John Riggins crossed that goal line and just knew. I mean, there were 10 minutes left, but you just knew. They were toast. They were done. If you've seen enough football, you know there's a time in a ball game when you know you're okay. Nothing's going to happen. We got this one in the bag, and that was the moment that we had it in the bag. Anyway, that's my number one moment. My number one Redskins moment of all time. In a couple weeks, we're going to have my friend Jeff Hetrick on, and we're going to talk about my biggest Redskin pothole, which was November 5th, 2006, the infamous day that I drank a full bottle of Jack Daniels. Oh, yes, we're going to cover that in detail. Lucky y'all. You get to hear all the craziness that ensued with me and that day. That's going to be in a couple weeks. We finish it off with Demi Bennett. She's doing very, very well in her chosen profession. And again, if you know Demi Bennett, boy, oh boy, I would just love to talk with her. Anyway. And Christy Martin Salters. I would love to talk with Christy Martin Salters as well. We have gone way over. We've gone way, way over, so I apologize. I hope you've enjoyed this particular episode. I know I have enjoyed it. I am so thrilled that my team actually has competent ownership now, and my team hopefully is on the way back up to where it needs to be. And thank you for allowing me to tell you all about my team and some of the great memories that I have stowed away that I carry with me, that maybe when I hit a pothole or two, I remember a Redskin memory and puts a smile on my face and makes it a little easier to climb out of that pothole. I want you to have a great weekend. Have a great week next week. I look forward to chatting with you, and thanks again. Oh, like and subscribe. Oh, heavens to Betsy, like and subscribe. Thanks, guys. Bye.